we are Vocal Trash, and we are so excited you are part of our drumming workshop. We are a very unique group. What we do is we travel all around the world, and we promote the message of peace, of love, and saving our planet. Now, how we save our planet is we make music out of items we've rescued from a landfill, like trash cans, water bottles, barrels, buckets, brooms, lids, anything you recycle, we can make music out of. So we're going to demonstrate that right now and do a song called Think Before You Throw It Away. Now, we're going to start with one. Ivan Cruz is going to play a barrel, but you're going to see through a community is how the music is really effective as a team. Here's Ivan.
3, 4.
So Greg Dugan, he's gonna play some pots and some pans. Now what I love about these water bottles Steve Linder's playing is they each make a different tone. He's representing clean energy, solar, wind. Oh, yeah. You've got to think before you throw it away. Save the day.
Recycle.
So get on your phone, I can't do it alone. Gotta take a stand all across the land.
Recycle.
We are going green, if you know what I mean. We have got to go green. Oh no. Oh, 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 oh. You have got to think before you throw it away. We have got to save our planet. Oh yeah, reduce, reuse, recycle. Think before you throw it away.
Okay, we're back. How are we doing? All right, I'm going to show you some items right now that we play in the show, and I like to talk about them because people want to know more. After the show, people always come up and say, hey, show me this, show me that. So we're going to show you now. This is a little in-depth look at some vocal trash instruments. This is a thing that we put together called an apparatus, and it is designed to show off some 3-gallon water bottles. Now, water bottles come little and they come big, all the way up to 5-gallon and even bigger. These guys right here. And we'll talk about these as well. Now, what these are 3-gallon, and they make a different sound than, as you can imagine, something like this, or even some of the small containers, which, by the way, can be utilized as shakers. You can just imagine that. If you're a water bottle, instead of tossing the water bottle away, open that up, put some pebbles in there, maybe some buttons, anything around the house, or just some gravel, and close that back up, and then you got a shaker. So plastic is a marvelous source for music, believe it or not. So these are water bottles that sound like drums. If you were to see a marching band marching by, eventually you're going to get to the drum section. Now, that's what we're doing, is basically making a marching band instrument out of water bottles. Again, so people can go, wow, that's cool. What does it do? Does it save the planet in and of itself? No. but it does raise awareness. Awareness is very important. When people start thinking about plastic objects, they start rethinking about how they live their lives. Maybe we can eliminate plastic, so on and so forth. But in the meantime, different pitches, different tones, they all make a different sound. I didn't tune them. They just sound differently because the manufacturing process is different. It's imperfect. So every one of them sounds a little bit different. When you put them together, you start making some music. Sounds like an approaching storm. The low one. Very dynamic. So that's the marching 3-gallon water bottles. Now, from there, I want to talk to you about these guys, which says, let me see what we are. It says ice only. So we carry ice in these containers, but it's made out of the same material, you can see. Now, we like to use these as hand drums. You know what I'm saying? Like bongos and congas and the various hand drums that you hear in so many great instruments and ethnic type of music, which we love because we've been to Africa, we've been to Romania, all the different lands that use the hand drums. I thought I'd get my partner Greg to help me out. He's going to scoot up on yet another plastic instrument, which is a bucket. That can be made into music. And we're going to show you a little bit about these that we have converted into hand drums. Greg is some kind of an expert at this, so I'm going to let him kick it off, and I'll join you. Nicely done, Greg. These are hand drums, folks, that were originally ice barrels. So again, awareness. When people hear us play those, they think, oh yeah, and they start getting into a groove, and then they see with their eyes, that's something different, and it's an opportunity. It's an opportunity to talk about our message about saving the planet, and let's deplasticize the planet. So, continuing on.
Yeah, what are these?
These are very unique. Technically, they're PVC pipe.
Ah.
Now, that said, we call them a xylodrum. The only xylodrum on the planet, folks, because we invented this. And this is something that is made out of PVC pipe. Gets water from one place to the other. In other words, it's plumbing. So we have got all these various sizes that we've cut off, and now we have an interesting instrument. Now we call them xylodrums because they go from high to low, or low to high. check it out. Now, real quickly, I'm going to make a little bit of a song out of these as well. And if everybody would just help me out by putting those hands together. Putting those hands together. So there you go. There's a pretty good demonstration of the PVC pipes, and people want to know more about that. Now, real quickly, this is a recorder or a penny whistle, a flute, whatever you'd like to call it, that is made out of more PVC pipe. And again, nobody else has one of these. It's unique to Vocal Trash. So you've got the finger holes, and you can eventually make a song. And we think that's very cool. And a lot of people want to know more about that as well. Now we have one more instrument I'd like to demonstrate, and that is the plastic trumpet.
More plastic.
That's right. PVC pipe trumpet, folks, that I played during the show. And check that out. Held together with duct tape. More plumbing. We could actually run water through this. But it sounds pretty good. Really. Check that out. Now, if you want to do a song. It's not perfect, but it still makes a joyful noise because it's so very different, and people want to know more about that. So, folks, it's all designed to have a message. So everything we play is repurposed. We're going to show you some more, but I wanted you to get a handle on all the plastic that we play in an effort to have you guys think before you throw it away.
Marvelous job talking about the different types of plastics and PVCs. We're going to move on from that and now talk about metal and all the different objects in metal that you can do it, what you can do with it. So you saw this in the first segment. These are pots and pans. So just like you use in the kitchen when you're boiling your water at home, these are different sizes of pots and pans. They all make different sounds because they're different sizes. So just like with the water bottles, you have a low, middle sound, kind of a high sound. Same thing here. Just because they're different size pots, they make different sounds. Now, just like what Steve was talking about, we had to figure out a way to mount these and wear these because we're up here moving around and dancing around. So just like with the marching band he was talking about earlier, we had to figure out a way to put all this stuff together and be able to move around with it. So I'm not going to go too much into it. There's bolts inside of it. We got little spacers. We kind of attached it all to this, what we call a drum harness. We put it all together so that way we can actually wear it. Now, there's two other objects on here that you'll notice up here. If there's any drummers out there, or if you've seen any YouTube videos of a drum set player, you notice they've got a bunch of drums, and then they've got some cymbals up here. So these are kind of like my cymbals for this apparatus. So these are actually hubcaps off of a car. These are older cars, little smaller wheels. So you got different size pots, then you got some hubcaps. Those are my cymbals. So you can kind of treat this almost like a drum set. And you can use all different sounds. You can use the sides, you can go on the tops, you can use the carrier that I'm actually wearing. So you got a plethora, you like that word? You have a plethora of sounds you can actually choose from. Now, what you don't see up here, we actually keep these at home. When we travel a lot, we have to fly. So we actually have another pots and pans, what we call an apparatus, that actually comes completely apart. We stuff it inside of a suitcase and then off we go to the airport. So these kind of are permanent setup. They stick around at home, they stay at home, but we have an apparatus, if you will, that comes completely apart. You kind of stick the pots inside of each other, you put them in a suitcase, and then away you go. So with the water bottles and these, it's a really cool sound between the two of them. I'm sure in your kitchens at home, you've got different sized pots. You've got little frying pans you can use. There's actually some drummers in Brazil, they actually use frying pans even today. They still use these little frying pans. So you can use frying pans, different sized pots, hubcaps. Now over here, speaking of hubcaps, we have what we call our car parts apparatus. If you'll zoom in a little closer, come a little closer, you'll see you've got more hubcaps off of a car. You've got, that's a grill off of an old Ford. You've got a spring. I believe that's a
Suspension.
suspension off the car, right? Yeah. So you got suspension. There's a brake drum, which I'll come back to the brake drum here in a second. Now these are kind of cool. These are washboards. The women, they like to use the washboards. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So these are washboards like what you use for clothes. I don't have a piece of metal around here, but if you have a metal paint opener, is what they call it. It's a little tiny little device of metal. If you use that on it, it's a really cool sound. But kind of that what they call a güiro sound in Latin American music. Kind of has that güiro sound to it. But this is made from a washboard. I'm going to use this to you guys. We're actually going to use that here in a minute. But all these different metal choices you got to choose from on this big car apparatus part. So you can have a lot of fun on this little apparatus. There's so many different sounds to choose from. Now, speaking of metal, one of the instruments that I've come to adore, is the sound is beautiful, is this steel, what we call a steel pan. Another metal instrument. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the history of how this evolved, because it's kind of a cool story. This dates back to, I'm going to go all the way back to the 1800s. The late 1800s. And the island of Trinidad, even today they still do, they had these street carnivals, street performances, little celebrations they used to do. Now back in the 1800s, they used to use, there were people that came to the island from Europe, there were people that came to the island from Africa. So all these different segments of people had their own styles, they had their own rhythms. Back then, it was mainly just drumming and dancing, and they actually used real drums at first, and then they did these street dances. Well, over time, they got a little unruly. They got a little violent. These different tribes actually started kind of fighting each other a little bit. So the ruling class at the time, they were fearful that they were actually using these drums to communicate secret messages. So they were worried about revolution from the lower class people that were doing these street performances. So the government at the time banned drums. Said, you know what? No more drums. We're not going to use drums anymore. But the people still wanted to be able to perform their music. They still wanted to demonstrate their style. So the first thing they did was they actually started cutting down bamboo stalks into different lengths. There were 4 main lengths. I can't remember the names. They actually had specific names for them. But they would play these bamboo stalks on the grounds, kind of like this. And that was to emulate their drum sounds. Oh, I'm going to pass this to you real quick. So that was kind of the mainstay for a while, were these bamboo bands with these dancers. Then they realized, we got a lot of these metal objects floating around the island. So along with the bamboo stalks, they started picking up metal objects. They used to use, they called them biscuit tins. They were like little tins that these little cookies used to come into. But they would find paint cans, they would find these biscuits, they would find hubcaps, and they would combine the bamboo stalks with these metal sounds. So, oh, there they are. So with the bamboo stalks, play those on the ground if you will for me, plus the metal sounds that they were using, nice. So that, along with, and Pablo would get up and dance, that would be the kind of the staple of these street performances. Well, around the turn of the century, around early 1900s, and once again, they started getting a little unruly. They started using these bamboo stalks as weapons against each other. They kind of started fighting with them. Well, around the time the World War I started, they actually banned these street carnivals, if you will, these street performances. Said, you know what? No more, for safety, for security, we're not going to even do these street performances anymore. So they kind of got rid of the bamboo stalks at the time. But between World War I and World War II, that kind of gave these musicians an opportunity to kind of take these metal objects and kind of experiment with them. Because what they started realizing, the more you beat these metal objects, they get these little dents in it. If you look at some of our trash cans, they'll have dents in them because you're just beating them so much. Well, they discovered, because of all these dents, they actually make different tones. You can make different sounds. You can make it more melodic, like a song, versus just having a bunch of rhythm and dancing. So they started getting creative. And this, the idea that we've mentioned a few times about thinking before you throw it away. They had to think, well, how are we going to recreate our rhythms and our dances? And they started taking metal trash cans, metal paint cans, and they just figured out a way to make dents in it to make these different sounds. Well, at the time, oil refinery was really big on the island, especially during World War II. And there were ships, cargo ships coming, and they would offload these huge 55-gallon metal barrels. We don't have one out here, but so there were plenty of these on the island. So somebody smarter than me figured out, well, how can we use that? So they started cutting these 55-gallon barrels into different lengths, into different sizes. This is actually one of the smaller ones. So they would cut them different lengths, different sizes. Some of them were really big, some of them were the full size. Now if you get a close-up inside of this, you will see that there are little bubbles inside, or little dents. So there's a process to it. They heat the metal up, they make it concave, they take a hammer, they put all these little bubbles and dents in them, and all these little dents, or bubbles, whatever you want to call them, actually create a musical tone. Just like you would find on a piano, just like you find on a guitar, a trumpet that Steve played earlier, you can play different notes. With this metal, you can play different notes. Now, a guy named Elie Minette actually invented this. This is just a wooden stick. that they probably originally found just lying around the island. If I use the wooden side on it, it's kind of a harsher tone. Very useful, but Ellie decided to put a piece of rubber on the end of one of them, and that's how you get this crystal clear kind of, it pulls the tone of the metal out. And it creates this really, really beautiful sound. So with the help of my people back here, I'm going to show you a little bit about what this sounds like in context. Now,
I love how the music changed from war to peace.
To peace, exactly. Now, again, we had to figure out a way to be able to make this mobile so we can move around. So that's why I'm putting this on. I'm going to put a belt strap on to try to kind of keep it steady. Normally, these are on a drum stand or a hardware. They're just dancing around and having a good time. If you go on YouTube, if you've got access to YouTube, and you look up steel drum bands, you'll see all the different sizes and shapes of steel drums. And every year, again, they have these carnivals, and it's called the Carnival of Steel. So there's huge orchestras that are nothing but steel drums and percussion. It's a really fun time. It's awesome. But anyways, we're going to play this song, I think.
55-gallon drum, Greg. You start, we'll follow.
Alright, we're gonna all join him with a song called Why Can't We Be Friends?
Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends?
Divide your trash from bin to bin. If you recycle, you can be my friend.
Why can't we be friends? 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 Say no to plastic and styrofoam.
Say no, say no.
They stay in landfills way too long. Why can't we be friends? 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 All right. It's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. It's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. It's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. It's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. It's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. It's not what you do, it's the way that you do it. Not what you do, it's the way that you do it. And I like what you do. Skilly about school, a skilly about bow, a two pop, but I skip it even hobble over. Heave it up a hobble over, heave it up a skip it up a hop, but I'm in the bigly 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 bigly. The back, 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 tell me better than do that. A skilly move back, a shoot up, but I skilly move all day.
So hit 'em.
Oh,
It
hey.
doesn't only have to be with your mouth. It doesn't just have to be with drumsticks or drums. It can be your feet too.
Yeah.
is to get you guys involved. This is a do-it-yourself section because like we said before, we put a lot of these instruments together ourselves, and these are items that you are going to typically find in a landfill. You may find it in your ocean, you may find it in places that they aren't needed to be. So we have rescued them and made it into different instruments.
That's right. Starting out with our shaker, which is homemade. Folks, you know how you do this? This is very easy. You get like some canned corn, maybe some 3-bean, you know, or green beans or something like that. You eat the contents first.
Yes.
And then you get your mom or your dad to help you out, and you can actually cut out the center. Leave those ends intact. Cut out the center of each, which would be the tops or the bottoms. You know what I'm saying. You need a solid end on each side, and then here needs to go all the way through. So if you were to open this up and look inside, you would see that 2 of these lids have been removed. Obviously you do that to eat the vegetables. So that said, you can take some tape or anything that you think would bind these 2 cans together. In this instant there is tape here, so you can use most anything. You can use glue or anything like that. Now inside you need to put buttons. You need to go outside, find little rocks, some kind of gravel, anything, maybe even little beads that you would have from a necklace, an old necklace or whatever. And then inside you seal that up, and then you get a shaker. And it's a cool shaker too. It's very musical.
Yeah, it is.
It makes you move.
I love the dancing.
Yeah, it's good dancing.
And you've got something that's very unique.
I do. I put this together. This is like a tambourine, if you will. I did a little bit of woodworking on this. This was a piece of like driftwood. The wood was about going to be tossed aside. So I did a little bit of woodwork on it, but inside there are pop tops or bottle tops. So here in the United States, we've got glass bottles that have pop tops on them that you pop off before you drink it. So these are all actually pop tops. Now I drilled some holes through those. In the middle of these, it's really hard to see for you guys. This is an old wire hanger that I kind of cut into small little pieces so I can stick the piece of hanger in the middle of all these pop tops. And then I stacked a bunch of pop tops together. Once I cut out the wood, I put it all together and tambourine. So this with the shaker.
You're starting a band.
You guys are going to come up with all kinds of ideas.
Yeah, and don't forget to share them with us. Don't forget to send us your videos and your ideas on Facebook.
That's right. What do you have?
Well, I have this is what we call a mallet. Usually when you would use a juice barrel, instead of the normal mallet that you would usually see, we made our own. We got a tennis ball. We screwed it on the top with some old drumsticks. Yes.
And there's always some ball laying around the house or whatever, if your dog's been chewing on it. And again, you put sticks together, it looks like you tape that up, and then it becomes a mallet for this great big juice barrel. What a great bass drum sound that is.
Now these barrels we put together too. Greg, if you would grab yours and stick those on, we just put straps on.
These are straps that we found from old marching drums. And we're using them. You can use anything. You can use rope. You can use belts. You can use a seat belt from an old car. Anything like that. We have seen everything as we've traveled throughout the world. So many people bring us instruments that are really meaningful to us because it makes us think. You are thinking before you throw it away.
So we're going to utilize all of the instruments that we created and show you how you will have your own band and rescue the environment all at the same time.
Pack it, pack it, pack it, pack it. So we all have a choice. Make a big noise. Let's start the change the world really needs today. It's up to you. Recycle, reuse, All together now, the waste will reduce. And when I say all together now, I mean all together now. Everybody at home, where you're at, stand up. We're going to do a song together, you and Vocal Trash. Let's do this together. Everybody in the room, make sure they're standing. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Are you doing it? If you're happy and you know it, then your life should surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. All right, pretty good. I can even see you from here. Make sure everybody's doing it. I'm watching you. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. Because if you're happy and you know it, your life should surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. All right, Bahrain, you're doing pretty good. Here's where it gets weird. Everybody, make sure everyone's doing it. If you're happy and you know it, hug your neighbor. If you're happy and you know it, hug your neighbor. Hug your neighbor, hug your neighbor, hug your neighbor, hug your neighbor. Everybody get together. Hug your neighbor. Are you doing it? Well, we know how to stomp and we know how to clap. And if you want to throw a hug in there, we'd appreciate that. In the meantime, let's stomp and clap and do a great old classic rock and roll song. Stomp, stomp, clap. Stomp, stomp, clap. Stomp, stomp. Yes.
We all have a voice, make a big noise and start the change our world really needs today. It's up to you, recycle, reuse. All together now, the waste will reduce. We will recycle. We will recycle. We will recycle.
Greg Dugan on a toolbox guitar. Fun. Thank you so much for being a part of our drum workshop. We hope that you have taken some of this information with you and you will have it last throughout your life. Remember to think before you throw it away. Keep in touch with Vocal Trash. The reason that we put our Facebook page below is so that you can share with us. Maybe you have created an instrument that you have rescued from a landfill. We would love to stay communicating with you all. So we hope you've had a wonderful time, and don't forget to think before you throw it away. Thank you so much. We are Vocal Trash.
And 1, 2, 3, 4.